Good afternoon. Today we will continue to study about the subordinating conjunction, which we studied as the interrogative pronouns who, whose, what, and which. These interrogative pronouns who, whose, what, and which are able to be applied to start an interrogative clause, but the speaker can make the interrogative clause into the subordinate clause. In this transformation, in this transition, the pronoun who, whose, what, or which in the interrogative clause becomes the subordinating conjunction for the subordinate clause. And this explanation is about linking the subordinate clause, which originates from the interrogative clause, who is he, to the main clause. I heard about him. The pronoun him indicates the same person, indicated by the subordinating conjunction who. That can be the reason. The shared indication is the reason why we link the subordinate clause to the main clause. Until this point, we've studied about this conference. To transform an interrogative clause with the interrogative pronoun who into a declarative subordinate clause and link the subordinate clause to the main clause. The third example that we studied about this transformation is this. I heard about who he is. The point, the eminent point that we focus on in the subordinate clause is that the arrangement of the subject he and the be verb is. Because in the interrogative clause, the arrangement of the subject and the be verb was switched. Like the be verb comes ahead of the subject, who is he, like this. But the speaker changes the arrangement of the subject and the be verb so that the speaker makes the interrogative clause into the declarative clause, so that the declarative clause becomes the subordinate clause. Let's read the explanation of this part. The subordinating conjunction who indicates a person to define the subject he from the definition of the be verb in the subordinate clause. In the subordinate clause, the subject is indicated by the personal pronoun he. The be verb describes the person, the subject, and the subordinating conjunction who describes the subject in a way to define who the subject is. Let's study more examples that the subordinating conjunction who is applied in. The second example is this: who mediates every relationship is Jesus Christ. The third example that the subordinating conjunction who is applied in is this: I call you who I love. In the second example, we can find that the subordinating conjunction who starts the subordinate clause as well as the entire sentence. We can see that the subordinate clause originates from an interrogative clause starts from here to here. So we can expect, we can think, we can guess the interrogative clause of the subordinate clause. The interrogative clause that became the subordinate clause is this: who does mediate every relationship, like this. But the speaker intends to transform this interrogative clause to the subordinate clause because the speaker knows that the speaker does not have the inquisitive intent on the person indicated by the interrogative pronoun who. So the speaker transforms the interrogative clause to the subordinate clause, which is one of the declarative statement. And we also understand that the subject of the main clause is the subordinate clause. Who mediates every relationship is the subject of the entire sentence. We can say that it's a main clause, and the be verb describes the entire subject and makes the subjective complement describes the subject in a way to define the subject. And the third example, I call you who I love, is able to be analyzed in a way that this sentence is stated in the fifth type of clause. The subject applies the subordinate clause as the objective complement to describe the object in a way to define the object, because the subordinate clause has a role as an indication. We can say that the speaker put the listeners as the object to the same level with the objective complement, who I love. Let's study the sentences one by one. The second example that the subordinating conjunction who is applied in is this: who mediates every relationship is Jesus Christ. The speaker indicates the subject of the be verb, who is a person, with the subordinate clause linked by the subordinating conjunction who that has the trait as a pronoun. The subordinating conjunction who with the trait as a pronoun indicates the subject as the person described by the predicate mediates every relationship in the subordinate clause. We can take it down to the two clauses before being integrated into a sentence. The first conference is that the subordinating conjunction who is applied as an interrogative pronoun. Who does mediate every relationship? And the second conference that became the main clause is this: the person is Jesus Christ. And we can also know that the first conference became the subordinate clause of the whole sentence. Let's read the explanation together. The speaker transforms the first interrogative clause, who doesn't mediate every relationship, into the declarative clause because the interrogative clause the interrogative pronoun who indicates the person as the subject described by the transitive verb mediate in the first interrogative clause, corresponding with the subject, the person of the be verb in the second declarative clause. In this explanation, we can find the effort to find the shared indication as the linkage to link the subordinate clause to the main clause. The speaker states the transformed declarative clause as the subordinate clause to practice the role as the subject in the second declarative clause. So the speaker intends to substitute the subject, the person, into the entire clause because the pronoun who indicates the person, and in this first conference, in this in the first clause, the entire predicate describes the person very in the detailed way. So the speaker substitutes the subject of the second conference into the entire clause, which became the subordinate clause in the declarative statement. The third example that the subordinating conjunction who is applied is this: I call you who I love. The speaker applies the subordinate clause who I love, which is linked by the subordinating conjunction who as the objective complement to define the people as the object, to receive the definition of the transitive verb call from the speaker as the subject. In this explanation, the speaker in this explanation we can say that the speaker intends to describe the object who are the listeners in a subordinate clause that has the subject and the transitive verb. The speaker defines the listeners as the subject in the main clause, stated in the fifth type of clause with the subordinate clause who I love. This tells us that the speaker forms this sentence in the fifth type of clause, which is constituted with the subject, the transitive verb, the object, and the objective complement that describes the object. And as the entire subordinate clause has the trait as an indication, so we can say that the speaker describes the object in a way to define the object with an indication. We can analyze the previous example, the third example, in the two conferences. The first one is the declarative statement, which became the main clause. I call you friends. Let's read the explanation first. The speaker applies the noun friends as the objective complement to define the listeners as the object to receive the definition of the transitive verb call from the speaker as the subject. And the second conference is stated in the interrogative clause with the interrogative pronoun who, yet to become the subordinating pronoun. Let's read the conference together. The speaker indicates the object as the people indicated by the interrogative pronoun who, to receive the definition of the transitive verb love from the speaker as the subject. The speaker sets the object to be indicated by the interrogative pronoun who, to receive the definition of the transitive verb love from the speaker as the subject. The speaker who does not have any inquisitive intent to figure out the person indicated by the pronoun, the interrogative pronoun who transforms the interrogative clause to the subordinate clause. To become the subordinate clause, this clause changes its arrangement. The subject comes ahead of, the modal verb do is not needed anymore. So we find the shared indication between the two clauses that are the friend and the pronoun who. So we will link them as so that they become the third example. I call you who I love. The speaker links the two clauses from the fact that the pronoun who in the second interrogative clause corresponds with the noun friend that practices the role as the objective complement in the first declarative clause because the interrogative pronoun who and the noun friend indicate the same people. There is a conference that is about the pronoun whom.